I moved out of my mom's house when I was 18, and the first 2 years of my life after moving out were really chaotic. It really wasn't all good, but it wasn't all bad either. However, I did make some really bad choices, and I put myself into some dangerous situations. So honestly, I was pretty lucky to still be alive by the time I reached 20. I was a single mom. I had a newborn baby, and I didn't have a lot of trust or belief in myself or my own capabilities because I'd pretty much screwed so many things up by that point. I was just ready to start doing what anyone else told me to do because obviously I couldn't trust myself. And that's kind of what I believed about my own capabilities at that point of my life. The first thing that I'd tell myself at 20 years old is just to believe in yourself. And honestly, it took me a very long time to actually learn this lesson, to believe in myself. I remember I was ready to start my own business. I'd learned about this idea of virtual assistants, and it was something that I thought was something I could really do, and I wanted to pursue it. So I set up a meeting with an SBA mentor to talk about what I needed to do to start my own business. But the person that they paired me up with, he must have been 70, maybe older, and he'd been in the field of banking and investments his whole career. He didn't have a whole lot of experience with the internet, and he was just stuck in this idea of doing things how they've always been done. When I pitched my idea to him, he just shut me down immediately. He told me that I needed to get these wild dreams out of my head and to basically get off my lazy ass and to get a real job. He said that my ideas were foolish and they'd never work. I was pretty upset after talking to him, but I had this feeling that what I wanted to do would work. I put my ideas into motion, and 6 months later, I was making more than enough money so that I could quit my job and support my kids full time with my virtual assistant business. I spent so many years not believing in myself up to that point that I kept repeating the same mistakes over and over again. This was actually the first time in my life that I had trusted my own judgment and did something that I believed was actually a good decision. And it turned out great. And I'd like to say that this was a magical transformation and everything changed from after that point. But honestly, it took me a long time to keep making decisions based on a belief in myself. If I'd started doing that when I was 20 instead of 34, life would have taken a whole different direction for me. The next thing I'd tell myself is to spend time by yourself doing things that you enjoy doing. In my experience, when young women have babies and they're single moms and on their own, they seem to fall into one of two extremes. Either they go out and they party and their parents, the grandparents, end up spending all the time with the kids while the mom's out having fun and living her life. Or the other extreme is where she spends all of her time with the kids. Her whole world centers around her kids, and she loses herself, all her interests, all her hobbies, and she doesn't do anything for herself. Me, I fell into the second category. Everything was all about my kids or their interests and what they wanted, what they needed, or it was about the interests of whatever toxic man I was with at that point in my life. I honestly never did anything for myself by myself. A few years ago, when I went through my spiritual awakening, I was listening to a meditation from an influencer on YouTube. And during the meditation, he said to visualize things that make you happy. Think about your hobbies, about your interests, and, stuff like that. I never really liked it when people asked me what kind of hobbies or interests I had outside of my work and raising kids. I'd spent most of my life as a single mom. I cooked and I cleaned, I took care of the kids, and I worked to support my family. I never made time for hobbies or interests or fun things. And I'm in my 50s now. And I'm just now starting to explore things that I enjoy. I'm just now discovering new hobbies and new interests because I spent my life putting everyone else first and ignoring my own needs. So that's something I would tell my 20-year-old self is to go out and spend some time doing your own thing. Let grandma and grandpa babysit the kids every now and then. And it's okay to have your own hobbies and your own interests. The last thing that I would tell my 20-year-old self is just this, and that's mom and dad are not the villains or the heroes. Neither parent is the bad guy or the good guy. My parents separated when I was about 7, maybe 8 years old. I've heard a lot of people talk about how when their parents split up, they felt like they were to blame and that they themselves were the reason why the parents split up. For me, that wasn't the case. I didn't blame myself. In fact, it was just the opposite. I blamed my mother. She was the villain, and it had nothing to do with me as far as I was concerned. And I have only now begun to realize that while I do have some memories of the night my mom left and the events that happened in the days after that, and I still remember the names of my dad's attorneys and the little kinetic perpetual motion clock that they had in their office, I've always thought, well, I can remember so many things and I know exactly what happened. In reality, all my memories are my own point of view. I don't know the conversations, the fights, the reasons, the motivations behind everything that happened when I wasn't around them. Because of thinking that my mom was a villain, I spent a whole shit ton of years of my life putting my dad on a pedestal and turning my back on my mom. That there came a time when I felt like my dad let me down. I wanted his support when I was going through a rough patch in my life, and he felt like I was wrong and he wouldn't support me. And we spent a long time that we didn't talk. And it was during that time that I didn't have a relationship with either one of my parents. What I wish my 20-year-old self would know is that mom and dad are human. They both make mistakes. They're both just living their lives to the best that they know how. The funny thing is that my dad actually tried to tell me this throughout the years. He'd tell me all the time that I needed to give my mom a break because she had a rough childhood. That always pissed me off because I had a rough childhood after she left. I was the victim. I suffered, so it pissed me off when he said, well, she had a rough childhood. You need to give her a break. I was like, well, she went and screwed things up and caused me to have a rough childhood too. So let me tell you, I was never very forgiving in that regards. But Dad passed away about 13 years ago, and we'd resolved a few of the things that him and I had had issues about, but there were still a lot of things that were left unsaid and a lot of unresolved things that I wish we could have talked about, because when he disappointed me, I made him the villain. And that was a pattern that I had been putting onto my mom, and then I just transferred to my dad when he upset me. And Mom's in her 70s now. And since going through my spiritual awakening, I'm finally realizing that everything she did over the years was just her doing her best. She was just living her life through the knowledge, the experiences, the best that she knew how. She was making her decisions based on the knowledge that she had. And she wasn't out to hurt me. She wasn't out to cause me pain, even though I caused her a great deal of pain. She's always been there for me whenever I needed someone, even when I was angry or hurtful or vengeful to her. She never turned her back on me. Never. And lesser person probably would have, because I was a little shit for a long time. And that's putting it nicely. This is something I wish my 20-year-old self would have known, that I could have learned how to build a healthy relationship with both of my parents throughout all of my life, instead of missing out on a lot of good experiences and good memories with them. I wish I could tell my 20-year-old self that 30 years will pass in the blink of the eye, and just take a moment to stop time, live in the moment, enjoy your kids, take care of yourself, learn to live and have fun. You deserve happiness, and you are capable of more than what you believe you are. I know that I can't go back in time to deliver this message to my 20-year-old self, but maybe this will resonate with some other young woman who's around that age. Maybe she's 18, 19, 20, 25, whatever. Maybe this will help her change directions so that in 30 years, she has a completely different life, completely different experiences because she heard this video. I just want to thank you for joining me on this reflection back in time. And I look forward to sharing a new video with you soon.